Welcome, everyone. This is the Camera Club of Richmond. This is our overview and Q&A session on our image evaluations for 2025. My name is Karen Davis, and I'm the Communications and Publications Director for the club. And I wanted to introduce you to our digital director, who is Pat Hutchinson. You'll see Pat's name showing up on the Zoom call, but she's having some camera issues. Kind of ironic that we're a camera club, but her camera's not working properly. So we'll hear her voice, but we won't see her lovely face. The other important person in this whole process is our print director, Michael Orr. Michael is actually our retired digital director. He did that for several years, and he's moved over to handle prints for us this year. I don't think he's going to be able to make this call tonight, but he's the person that if you decide you want to enter prints into these evaluations or critiques, Michael would be the one that's going to accept those prints for you. So we are recording this, and it will be posted on our CCR YouTube account under, I think, the training videos or whatever. So if you have a question, you need to go back to this and refer to what we might have said in this training session. You'll be able to get back to this recording and answer questions. And of course, your board members Pat and I are, two of the board members, but we have quite an array of board members with lots of experience, been around for a while. Any one of us would be happy to answer questions for you as you go through and get into this process and you have something come up. So you'll be able to find that list of directors on our website. And I think it's board member, and click on the link and you'll be able to see our email addresses. And then, once you establish contact with us, if we need to, we can always, pick up the phone and just chat with you. But just to give you a little bit of a background, the Camera Club of Richmond was founded in, believe it or not, 1932. So we have been around for quite a while, and it was to promote the art of photography in Central Virginia. Our vision that was recently redefined is to promote excellence in photography, inspiring our members to reveal the world around us, preserve memories, and create works of art. And the mission is to empower our members through all kinds of things like training and education, the opportunities to exhibit your work, mentoring, competitions, and critiques, which is one of the things that we want to talk about tonight. And those critiques we actually call image evaluations. And we provide 5 of those each year. They're spread out throughout the year. Again, if you go to our website or look at our magazine, Southern Exposure, you'll find the list of all of the monthly meetings that are coming up. We meet on the second Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. Those are hybrid meetings. So if you're in the area and you want to attend in person, it's at Unity of Bon Air on Buford Road. But if you happen to be traveling, or if you're a far-flung member, like one of our attendees today calling in from Las Vegas, he gets the prize for being the farthest attendee today. You can attend those via the Zoom application, and we have a Zoom link that is the same each month. So you can save that in your calendar and just pop in on Zoom. If you happen to miss it entirely, we record each of those. And again, we put them out on our YouTube channel so you can go back and rewatch, or, if you forget what the evaluator said about your particular image, you can replay it and go back and see again what they said, what suggestions they might have had for you on those images. But those evaluations are done by professional or seasoned photographers, sometimes artists that they bring in to give you some overview of just some feedback on your images, how you might be able to improve those images, things you might want to change, things that you may not have thought about. And I know critiques, evaluations can be a little scary. I was shaking in my boots the first time I submitted an image back. I guess this will be my 11th year of participating in image evaluations. But I joked with somebody that I felt like I needed to put on my hat and took my trench coat and pull the collar up and sort of hide to see what this person was really going to say about my art. But the process really is painless, and you do learn an awful lot on that third-party feedback that you get on those images. And as I mentioned, we do 5 a year, so they're spread out, usually starting in February, and we might have a couple in a row, and then we skip a month and we have a presentation. But the last one is generally in September, because what we do at the end of the year is a competition. And I tell people to think about those evaluations or critiques as preliminary rounds, if you will, to sort of give you a little bit of feedback in case you want to participate in the end of your competition. And it's definitely not required. You could enter every single image evaluation, get feedback, be able to critique and update your pictures, but never enter the competition if you're competition shy. But again, you learn from the feedback that you get on the scores that you might get on that end of your competition. You can submit 1 or 2 images to each of those evaluations. So all total, again, 5 times 2, you could have as many as 10 images assessed throughout the year by these evaluators. Let's see. See what else we wanted to mention to you. I mentioned the end of year competition, and it is not required. 10 images. And if you're nervous about competing, it's not like there's one big group of us all competing together, because we have 138 members right now in the Camera Club of Richmond, and we have all types of cameras being used. We have all types of backgrounds for our photographers, people who have come in to join the club and said, I got a camera for Christmas, and others who've been around for decades and shooting pictures. So if you're a novice, you probably don't want to be competing against somebody who's won Best in Show the last 3 out of 5 years. So we have what we call groups that you can choose what group you feel like you want to compete in. And we encourage folks that are new to the club, if you don't know where you might fit in, to start in a novice intermediate group. And then as you get better and you feel more comfortable, we have an advanced group. And then finally is our expert group. And these guys, if you've seen some of their work, they'll just blow you away. Really, we have some excellent photographers in our group, and most of them are very, very willing to help out, to mentor, to teach classes and that sort of thing. So it's kind of a nice grouping of folks. But that's just kind of a brief overview of who we are and what this whole image evaluation process is all about. So let me pause for a breath and see if anybody has any questions. Oh, and I see a question that came in about entering 12 images. That was true in the past when we had 6 evaluations, but the board voted last year to change our format a little bit. Instead of having 5 presentations and 6 evaluations, we flipped it. So now we're doing 5 evaluations and 6 presentations, because we felt we sort of lost our focus on teaching our members. So we wanted to have more teaching opportunities. So that's why we cut back to 5 evaluations. And then that would mean two per, which would give you 10 images to enter at the end of your competition. So Shashi, yeah, we did change that rule last year. So we're at 10, and we still get an awful lot of images. I think last year, Pat, this will be a good place. I'm going to hand it over to Pat to do the nitty gritty nuts and bolts, but she knows all the numbers. I think we had 400 and some images last year in our competition.
339.
339. Okay, we didn't quite make 400. And I believe it was 39 participants in the competition. 39 photographers participated.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So as I mentioned, Pat Hutchinson is our digital director. She took on that lovely job last year. It's a bear. You got to love data if you want to do digital director. So bless her for taking that on last year. So she's our seasoned digital director now. And we were going to share those image evaluation procedures that we emailed out. You can also find them on our website, and kind of go through them and just pause as we go along and see if anybody has any questions. Pat, do you want to share screen, or do you want me to do it?
I'll share.
Oops, I didn't quite hear that. Is that me or you?
Oh, I will share.
You'll share. Okay, go ahead. All right. So while she's pulling up her screen, I see it's coming.
Can you see
There.
that?
I can.
Okay. All right.
And yeah, can you maximize it a little bit? I don't think you're quite at. There you go.
Whoops. Wrong way.
Maybe drag the corner. I mean, it's definitely visible, but it could be a little bigger.
If I maximize the whole, yeah, the whole screen is maximized. I don't know how to make it any bigger, Karen.
Yeah, that's okay.
Um,
It's looking, I can read it
but
even
if you,
without my reading glasses. So,
how
so
small is it?
that's good. It's about 10 point type. So it's fine.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah, much
Is that
better.
better?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
My old eyes. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna turn my video off and I'm gonna let you take it away. So don't have to stare at me
Okay.
while you talk.
All right. I appreciate you guys coming on and, letting us review this with you. So as Karen mentioned, there are 5 image evaluations throughout the year. And for each image evaluation, you can submit 2 images. They can be either digital or they can be print. If they're prints, you also need to submit a digital image of that print. And I'll get into that a little bit later. There's also something called an assigned subject, which we have. I'll show you the schedule also in a minute. We have evaluations February, April, June, July, and September. And 3 of those 5 months are assigned subject. And on the assigned subject, you can submit 1 image into the assigned subject and 1 image into the general category. If you don't want to submit into the assigned subject, you can do 1 general image. So bottom line is on the assigned subjects, you can do 2. 1 has to be general and 1 can be assigned. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Whoops, sorry about that. Sliding around here. All camera work has to be your own, which means you can't go to a studio where somebody's setting up the lighting for you and submit something from that. You can't have someone set up your camera for you. So everything you do has to be your own. Here where it says images made while under immediate direction or technical supervision of another are not eligible. So that's what I was talking about. If you're in a class or a seminar or a trip and someone's telling you how to set your camera up, you can't submit that. You can, after the class, you can take the information that you learned or the knowledge that you gained and apply it to another photo. That's fine. But what you took under that supervision cannot be submitted. No names or watermarks on the face of the image. They have to be in the correct format with the proper digital file name, which I'll get into the details of that in a little bit. Assigned subjects must have an underscore AS in the image name. Otherwise, they will not be considered as an assigned subject. And I'll also get into the reasoning for that in a little bit as well. Image evaluations are always on a Tuesday, which is our regular meeting night. And the images have to be submitted to me by midnight on Saturday prior to that evaluation meeting. There have been situations where somebody submits something to me, say 8 o'clock, and there are issues like Michael was talking about. The image is embedded and I can't get it into a JPEG format. As long as you get it to me before midnight, if we're having issues with it, I will be working with you. So I'm not going to cut you off and say, I'm sorry, we didn't get it resolved by midnight. I'm absolutely willing to work. You just have to have that original submission by midnight. I'd like for you to submit it so that there's enough time for corrections of any issues. So if you could submit that, way before midnight. I have people every month or every evaluation submit, I swear, 11:59 every single time. And if you've got an issue, then that means I've either got to deal with it Sunday morning or after midnight, and you may not be around. So it's good to get everything cleared up and submitted cleanly by midnight. If there's an in-person evaluator and you want to submit prints, then you need to bring that print to the meeting and you have to have it to the print director 15 minutes prior to the evaluation. And you can also convert any digital image to a print at the end of year competition. Any image can be resubmitted for evaluation if it's never won an award in the Camera Club. So this year I submitted, I don't know, maybe, I think it was 5 images I submitted to the end of year competition. Didn't win anything, so I could still submit them again, which is good. Let's see. I'll come back to that in a minute. So these are the things that the judges look for. They look for overall impact and impression. Does it tell a story? Does it invoke emotion? Does it give you a wow factor? So try to consider putting those into your images. Technical factors, is it clear, a good depth of field, exposure, lighting, color balance, all of that. Does the title actually fit the story that it's telling? So if you've got something about the seashore, you might not want to name it something about snow. Creativity, is it original? Composition, finishing. So you can, these things are pretty self-explanatory. So if you want to just go to the document, you can read those. I don't think they need any special clarification. So the specs for submitting, the image size can be anything up to 3840 pixels in width and 2160 pixels in height. This is a little weird because people have issues with panoramics or they have problems understanding, should I say, with panoramics and with vertical panoramics or just verticals in general. You can submit a panoramic or vertical and put these same dimensions in there, 3840 horizontal, 2160 vertical, and it's going to come out just fine. It's not limiting it to those actual dimensions. They are just the max for the width and the max for the height. And they can't be any higher than that or larger than that because of the particular projector we use. Do you guys have any questions on that part?
Yeah, just to be clear, Pat, if we have a portrait, you're saying that we could go with 2160 pixels in width with a 3840 pixels in height. Is that correct?
No.
No.
Okay. You put it exactly like it is. Even though it seems like it's going to be a horizontal measurement here, 3840 wide and 2160 high. If you put those dimensions in, 3840 wide, 2160 high, and you submit a portrait, it's going to come out fine. It's going to come out as a vertical image and not a horizontal image.
Okay.
It kind of is counterintuitive the way the measurements are. Same thing for if you have a panoramic. You would think, well, I need it larger than 3840 or 2160 is going to be too tall. It works out just fine. All it's saying is that those are the maximums for each of those. It doesn't use it. It looks at them individually. So it looks at the width individually and the height individually and uses those as the maximum. It doesn't say it has to fit into those both measurements. Does that make sense, Eric?
Yeah, it does now. Yeah. Just as an example, if I had a portrait and went with 2160 pixels in height, then the width would be something less than that.
Correct. It's going to be whatever makes sense. Yes, it'll be less than 3840, but it'll be the proper relationship to the image that you submitted.
You're right. Yeah.
In other words, it doesn't distort your aspect ratio. It simply sets those upper limits and says, okay, I can't go any wider than 3840. So what do I need to do to adjust the height so it looks right? And
Thank you,
Lightroom
Karen.
acts a little differently than Photoshop.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Karen. Yeah, in Lightroom, you set them both. In Photoshop, oh my Lord. In Photoshop, and I've not exported from Photoshop, so anyway, setting 2160 height works in most cases except for panoramas. Have you submitted through Photoshop, Karen?
No, I'm a Lightroom gal. We need Terry on the phone. He's our Photoshop wizard. Terry, Joe Ring uses Photoshop quite extensively, and I think Martin Evans. So there, if you see those links there, the resizing documents, those are really helpful if you have some in-depth questions. But again, test us out on the board and see, who might be the best person to help you with Photoshop. I use Photoshop, but I do all my exporting through Lightroom, so I'm not much help there.
Yeah, I think in Photoshop you have to submit or you have to enter them both. I enter them both in Lightroom and I never have a problem. But like Karen was saying, if you look at the resizing images, when you open this document and you click on this link here, it will take you. I want to do it, but I'm scared to. I don't want to lose
Give it a try.
where I am.
Oh, go for
Come
it.
on.
Be bold.
Go for
See
it.
if it
Oh,
takes.
Jesus. All righty.
We'll let you know, because a lot of times Zoom is really funny about switching. You may see that you've done the switch, but Zoom doesn't pick up on it, and I'm not seeing it open that document. So maybe it's just going to
Well,
take a second.
Yeah, and I think while we're waiting on that, the key is because I don't use Photoshop or Lightroom as my primary editor. I'm using Capture One, and I export and I set you can export whatever size you want. You can literally type in width and height, but you can change the parameter to be max, like Pat is saying. So I export and I set a max width and a max height, and whichever one the image bumps up against first is where it stops. If that
Pat, it
makes
worked.
sense
yeah,
to you.
that's perfect, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah,
Can you see my Photoshop
we can. It
instructions?
actually worked.
Well, I had to make it work.
Okay.
So here it says the image size not to exceed these values. So I'm thinking, and if you look over here at the sample, the width is 3840 and the height is 2160. So it looks like you have to enter them both. This right here is the part you want to look at and play with.
Yeah.
If the width has been set to 8840, then the height would exceed 2560, exceeding. Whoop, I'm sorry. I also got a new mouse to go with my new laptop. So you set the height to 2160. The width dimension will be calculated automatically. So you just need to make sure the width does not exceed 3840. But I think when you put both measurements in there, it's going to use those numbers as the maximum.
Yeah, I think Terry's words of wisdom were just to eyeball it, once you enter them and make sure it doesn't default to something else.
On my Mac, and I don't know how this works on Windows, I've just switched from Mac to Windows. But on a Mac, if you just hover over the file name in File Manager or whatever it's called in a Mac, it will show you the dimensions. The first one's going to be the width, and the second one's going to be the height. So it will show you just by hovering over the file name whether or not you're within those limitations. But if you have any questions on Lightroom or Photoshop, let me know. Shoot me an email. I will try to get the answer. If I don't know the answer, I'll find somebody who does. Like I'll pass you on to Michael and Karen, who seem to explain this better than me. All right, let me go back to this image here. All right, are we back to the evaluation image, Karen?
We were, and then all of a sudden it switched back to your resizing document. Yeah, close resizing and then take us back to procedures. There we go. You're back.
Okay, all righty. I see there's questions. Are there things that I need to address, Karen?
Nope, don't see anything in chat. Bill
Okay.
says so far so good, so keep on
Okay.
going.
All right. Format, as we were talking earlier, has to be JPEG only. And you want to keep it as close to 300 for the resolution as possible. Just, it makes it a lot easier for downloading, and no larger than 10 megabytes. And this is the part here that really bothers people. The whole naming convention. Why do you have to have an underscore? And why do you have to have the AS at the end? And why does it have to start with a D? There's a script that I run every time you submit images to me. I download them, and then I run a script against those to make sure that they're, first of all, the right size, excuse me, and that the file name matches this convention. This script looks at the first image, the first initial, looking for a D or a P to indicate whether or not it's a digital or a print. The next thing it's expecting is the title of the image. The next thing it's going to be expecting is the photographer's name. So that underscore between the D or P and the image title and the photographer's name, that underscore is what tells that script that, okay, we finished with this piece of information, go on to the next. Same thing for the AS that's after, I think the AS comes after the photographer's name. That's the very last node of the file name. When it sees an underscore AS, it knows it's going to be an assigned image. This is really important when it comes to year end, because when I run the script at year end, it takes all that information and puts it in the proper subfolders. It'll put it in the proper general folder, or it'll put it in the proper assigned subject folder. There's also a script that I run before the actual evaluations that strips off the photographer's name, and it strips off the D or P. So all that we see is the oh Jesus, I just lost it. I'm sorry. Oh,
That's
this is
okay.
the image title. So
Yeah,
that's
Pat,
all that we see.
I'm sorry, you might want to scroll down so that they can see the format that you're talking about of the
Oh, I
file
was going
name.
to do that. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
So this is for digital right here. We've got the D to say it's a digital, and then we've got an underscore. It can't be a dash, because you can have actually a dash in a file name, or in a you can have a dash in your name, or you can have a dash in the image title. So we have to use an underscore. You can't use an underscore in the image title because it's going to mess up the script. So this is saying it's a digital. This is the end of that particular node. On a clear day is the title of the image. There's an underscore again to say, okay, that's the end of the title. And then here's the photographer's name, Karen Davis, and it has to be a JPEG. And then for assigned subject, oh, let me back up just a little bit. If this was a print, it would be a P underscore instead of a D underscore. And then for assigned subjects, it's the same, except for at the very end, after the photographer's name, there's an underscore and 8S for assigned subject. So it's real important to put the underscores there instead of the dashes, and never use an underscore in your name or in the image title. You have any questions on the naming convention? Okay. And if you could put all of your images in a single email, that would make it easier for me. And And you just put the subject of evaluation. You don't have to put evaluation for February, evaluation for assigned subject. Just make it simple with just an evaluation subject.
Yeah, Pat, there are a couple of questions that came in that might be, I'm answering them in chat, but it might be good to actually put them here so they're in the recording. A question as to whether they have to be JPEG or JPG. Yeah, so the last, after the dot, we prefer JPG, but I believe the script was rewritten that it would accept a .jpeg.
It
So
will.
either
It
or.
will.
Yeah, and
Yep.
unfortunately, we can't take TIFFs or raw files or the new format that Michael was mentioning earlier, the HFEG, FEG. I can't remember what the new one is supposed to be, but not yet. You know, maybe down the road we'll rewrite all the scripts to be able to accept those. And then Bill's question, if it doesn't end in the underscore AS, it's assumed to be a
Yes.
general image. And, you know, we have had some issues in the past where somebody forgot the AS. They put two images in and one was disallowed because the rules say if you're going to do assigned subject, you can only put one in there. If you don't do assigned subjects, you can only enter one other image. So the computer said, oh, wait, you know, this person, Susie Smith, has entered two images this time, and that's not allowed. So one of them got kicked out, and we had some feelings hurt, and some people got upset. And, you know, it's like, yeah, just please remember to put the AS in there because we can't tell. You know, the computer obviously only does what it's programmed to do. But, you know, if we look and you sent two bird pictures, we don't know which one was supposed to be the assigned subject and which one was the regular. So it's really important that you have that underscore AS in there.
If that happens, I'm not gonna just drop an image. I think that would be pretty rude of me to do so. If you do submit two general photos on an assigned subject month, I'm gonna email you back and ask you which one is which. I'm not gonna add the underscore AS because that gets too crazy, starting to rename everybody's file names and what I've got. I'd like to have the emails as an audit trail, and I'd like to have the images submitted with the proper name. So I will let you know if that happens, and then you just have to resubmit whichever is the incorrect photo, making sure the underscore AS is in the file name. But I wouldn't drop you like a hot potato. That would just be wrong.
And just to clarify, we didn't drop the person like a hot potato before. It was one of those, you know, telephone tag and we ran out of time and somebody was away for a couple of days. So just kind of keep in mind that, you know, if we're around that in that time frame between Saturday and the meeting on Tuesday, you know, be aware you might get a call or an email from Pat saying, wait a minute, I have a problem with a certain image. So, you know, try to keep an ear open, you know, for a phone call or keep your eye on the emails just in case. Pat, are you still using the autoresponder?
Yes.
Might want to explain that.
Every time you send an email to the digital director email address, you're going to get an auto response back that just says that we received an email from you. So anytime you send something to me, you should get that back. If you don't get that back, then email me and let me know that you didn't get one. Also, I think I mentioned before, I try to respond back anytime somebody sends me an image. After I check it to make sure it's good, I let them know that what they submitted is all right, so that they don't have to worry about it anymore. If you don't get that email confirming that everything is good or that there is an error, please email me and let me know. Give me a little bit of time though. Sometimes really busy and don't have access to the club computer, so it may be a couple of days before I can actually run the scripts and check everything out. But if you don't hear from me in say 2 to 3 days, if it's early, like I've already had some people submit images for the February evaluation. I've not even looked at them. It's a little early, but Yeah, just give me a little bit of time. If it starts getting down to the deadline, you can shoot me as many emails and as often as you like. But I will always respond back and let you know whether or not or what the status of your images is. Let's see, for prints. Prints are done in a light box. They have to be mounted, matted, or printed on any material that allows it to stand up by itself. Make sure the method of adhering is you don't want to see any tape wrapped around the corners, or you don't want to see the backing wider or larger than the print itself. It should be a nice, clean, tight backing. Frame prints in glass, you can't do that. They have to be at least 5x7 and no larger than 16x30. You want them 5x7 or anything less than 5x7 is just too small, and anything larger than 16x30 is not going to fit in the light box. If there's an evaluation print form, I'm going to be brave again. Hit this. Can you see this?
Yep.
This is the print
Yep,
form
exactly.
for
It's there.
All right, so this is what you want to put in the, I believe it's at the upper left-hand corner.
Correct.
So you want to check this if it's an assigned subject, the image title, your name, and the date. So you want to put one of these in the upper left-hand corner of any image that you submit. This helps the print director because he doesn't, I mean, everything he needs to know is on the back of the image. Did it go back to the evaluation document?
You're switching very well.
Okay. As I mentioned before, there has to be a JPEG, a digital image submitted also for every single print, because when they're reviewing the prints on the Lightbox, we're also displaying the image on the screen for people who are on the Zoom or for people who are in the room who are not close enough to the Lightbox to really see. So there has to be the JPEG. The same rule, sizing, and everything applies to the print JPEGs as to the digital JPEGs. The only difference would be if it's for a print, it should begin with, the name should begin with P underscore instead of D underscore. Let me see.
Pat, quick question. Did you mention that they simply deliver those prints to the print director prior to that meeting? I think it's in there somewhere.
I thought I said it. I may have just read it.
Maybe not. Maybe I just missed it. And if you can't make it, you could still deliver a print and, get somebody maybe to bring it in for you if you wanted to submit a print to that meeting. And then if you have to miss the meeting, you can always watch the recording of the meeting. So you can still submit a print, even if you happen to not be able to attend that meeting, if you can find somebody to deliver for you. And then just to clarify, if there's an in-person evaluator, I think I put it in the chat a little while ago. We have 2 in-person evaluators this year. One is actually coming up in February. That'll be Anthony Rumley. He's a local photographer, does a lot of evaluations for us. And he's very, very good. He can be very, very honest. I think that's probably the polite way to say that. Anthony calls them like he sees them, but so we will accept prints in February and then again in September when David Everett, again, another local photographer, will be here in person to look at those prints. Otherwise, we're limited to doing digital because we've got some awesome evaluators that are calling in from California, Maryland, and I don't know where Laura Twining is. I'm not sure. I think she's somewhere in South Carolina, North Carolina. But they're really awesome people, and we didn't want to exclude them from doing our evaluations. So what we did was, the text there in red, we are allowing people to submit digitals for all 10 if you want to. And then at your option, you may convert any of those digitals to a print if you want to compete with a print at the end of your competition. So does that make sense to everybody, hopefully?
Yeah.
All right, yeah, I love it. And besides, I'm kind of a cheapskate when it comes to this. I'm like, why should I go print these things, have them evaluated as prints for somebody to tell me, oh, this is really bad. You need to lighten this. You need to crop that. And then I got to go print it all over again for the end of your competition. So I kind of like, this was a nice thing that came out of COVID, in my opinion, that we had to go to all digital evaluations. And then we came up with this, well, let's let people just convert them to prints for end of year if they want to. And so it was one of those silver linings of the COVID cloud, as I like to say, that sort of modified our procedures. But I like this modification because it saves me money.
Yeah, and if you can't, as Karen was saying, if you can't make the meeting, you might want to contact Michael, or his email is at on the very first page of this document for the print director. You might want to contact him because maybe you can set up some type of rendezvous where he can get the print from you. Just make sure that it's protected. Put it in a a trash bag, some kind of plastic, or a photo carrying case. Just make sure it's protected somehow. You can even email me and see if maybe there's some way we can get your print together. Let's see. So what I do just to give you a little of what I do is, you send me the email, I download the images, run the script, let you know whether anything needs to be corrected or not. I have a spreadsheet that I keep track of everybody in. Who submitted, whether they submitted prints, whether they submitted assigned subject, whether there were any issues, and whether those issues were corrected. So it's like an audit trail or a tracking of everything that everybody submitted. There's also a script that we run, or that I run, that after everything is downloaded, it goes through the folder and creates a spreadsheet of all of the file names and the photographers, and it sorts it. Actually, it puts the prints together with assigned subject in general, and then the digital images with assigned subject in general. And this is the spreadsheet that I read from on evaluation night. So these images are sorted in a particular sequence that they need to be reviewed in, and then the spreadsheet matches that. So that's what we do that's kind of a behind the scenes. And like it says here, I remove the photographers' names from the file names and share them with the evaluator if they want. They don't always want, like Anthony Rumley, I believe, does not like to review them ahead of time. If I'm not mistaken, David Everett does like to review them. He has no idea who they belong to because all he's getting is the name. And also, I like to pull the name out when we're actually in the evaluation, because sometimes I noticed up in the upper left-hand corner, I think you might see the actual file name, which will have the photographer's name in it. So again, that's part of where that underscore comes in. It uses that underscore to strip off the photographer's name. So the prints are displayed in a light box for the in-person evaluation. Like I said, it also appears on the screen. I announce the title of the image. The evaluator does his or her evaluation, making comments, giving suggestions, and then I announce the name of the photographer. And so that's the process that goes for both prints and digital. And then once they have been, I was going to go into a little bit about the end of year. I'm not going to go there. All I'm going to say is that anything that's been submitted for an evaluation, a monthly evaluation, can also be submitted in the end of year as an evaluated image. There's another image for end of year called a wild card, which I'm not going to get into. But if it's already been evaluated throughout the year, it'll be submitted in end of year as evaluated images. So these are the evaluation months and the assigned subjects. So this February 11th, it's an open evaluation. You can submit anything you want. April the 8th is this assigned subject of intentional camera movement. And I think the March meeting is actually, is that correct, Karen? The March meeting is about intentional camera movement, or is that a special meetup?
Actually, both. In March, Laura Twining will be joining us as a presenter to teach us about intentional camera movement. And Heidi Nunley, one of our members, actually was the one that suggested this topic and found Laura and put us together and said, hey, how about this for 2025? And I said, sure, it sounds like a great idea. And then she is working with our education director, Marianne Barnhart, to put together some kind of a meetup between the March presentation and the April assigned subject, so we can all get out with our cameras and practice and maybe mentor each other and ask questions and try to get some good photos to be able to turn in April. And then just today, our buddy Nick Stover, who is, you'll see if you go down a little further, Nick is doing our July evaluation. Nick is a photographic educator, and he's put together a series of seminars, one of which happens to be intentional camera movement. And I happened to see that, and I sent him a note and said, hey, Nick, I'm going to make that available to our members. And he said, hey, Karen, here's a 20% discount. And I went, cool, thank you very much. So I just posted that to our Facebook group, and I'm going to put it in Southern Exposure for February to kind of remind everybody, if you want even more training on intentional camera movement, you can hop into Nick's seminar. He's got somebody who's an expert on that that's going to be doing a presentation on, it's called ICM for short. So lots of opportunities to be able to learn and then create some photos and then have them evaluated. So that's kind of an exciting thing we put together for this year.
Yeah. So the assigned well, the February evaluation is in person with Anthony Brumley. April the 8th for intentional camera movement is virtual, so no prints are allowed. Tuesday, June 10th is another open evaluation. You can submit anything you want. Unfortunately, Carol Davis is really good, so it's fortunately she's doing the evaluation, but unfortunately you can't do any prints. July 8th, the assigned subject is moody photography. That's virtual, no prints. And then September the 9th, we're doing lights in the night. That will be in person. There's also this year for the September evaluation, we did something called a Print Palooza. So the evaluation or the meeting starts at 7. So an hour beforehand, David Everett got there early, and anybody who wanted to have a print evaluated could bring it. It wasn't, no digital copy was needed. It wasn't displayed on the screen. It was just in the back of the room. David did kind of an off the cuff evaluation of whatever image, print image you wanted to bring. So that was kind of nice. And then in October is when you actually need to submit for the year end.
Hey, Pat, if I could interrupt for 1 second.
Yes.
I actually participated in that Printapalooza, and it was awesome.
It was great. Yeah, I brought a print in as well, and David was really good.
Yeah, you get the 2 in the regular evaluation, but you also could bring in. I brought in I think I brought in 2 images on print. I might have brought in 3, right? And it was just extra feedback and conversation about your images on paper. It was great.
Right. And the thing about the Print Palooza, as you just mentioned, conversation, when you're doing the evaluations, even when it's a print, you don't have a chance to actually talk to the evaluator. He does the evaluation and then we move on to the next image. But with this Print Palooza, if he makes a comment, you can ask questions about why he's seeing it that way, or if you want to add something to the conversation, you can. So it's a really valuable hour.
I wanted to add one other plug. I know Pat said something about, unfortunately, these are virtual presenters. And the reason that we kept them, as I mentioned earlier, we went to all virtual, excuse me, which we had to do during COVID because nobody was meeting in person. So we pivoted very quickly. We found these awesome, awesome, awesome evaluators. And what Nick introduced us to was he wanted to get the images himself so that he could display the images, and he did it in Lightroom. So anybody who hasn't seen one of Nick's or Carol's evaluations, I'm not sure how Laura's going to do it. She's a first timer for us, but they actually displayed them in Lightroom and said, I think you should crop here. And they actually were showing us what they were intending, or, lighten this up, or, they were telling us what we should do and showing us at the same time. And everybody's jaw just kind of dropped. We'd never had an evaluation like that before, because it was always just show it on the screen and somebody talked and, maybe had a laser pointer and showed something, but you could actually see the image transform before your very eyes. And it was so, so, so valuable. And that's why we stuck with these folks going forward, because again, we've got our Zoom audience as well as the audience there in the church. And then, you're getting an opportunity to both see and hear the kinds of changes and critiques for your images. And it's just really, really valuable.
Anybody have any questions?
Didn't get my microphone back on. Actually, Pat, Bill wanted to know in 2024, and hopefully you got this number on the tip of your tongue, roughly what was the percentage of prints versus digitals that were submitted? I'm assuming this is end of year competition,
There
or
were
at least a
okay.
ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah, I can give you the numbers. I can't give you the percent, but you can work it out. There's 339 images, 54 of them were prints.
I'm going to put that in the chat too. Did you say 54 were prints?
54, yep.
And that was 54 of the 339?
Correct.
Got it. Okay. All righty. Yeah, I can't do that in my head.
But
So,
16%.
What is it?
16.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you
Eric's
to
got
our
a calculator.
local mathematician. Thank you. So if you're putting two and two together here and looking forward to the end of your competition, there is less competition, if you will, because there are less participants in the prints arena as opposed to in the digital arena. And as you move up the scale, I think we had maybe 2 prints come in from our novices this past year, 2 or 3, not many. The advanced folks, we're a little bolder. I'm in that advanced group. We're a little bolder. We do a few prints here and there. And then the experts, you're generally going to see more prints from the expert level, because a lot of those folks, they're in galleries or they're doing shows, and they're using prints all the time. That's just something that, and a lot of them print their own things. That's something that we didn't cover. You do not have to print your own work. We have a couple of our members who do printing for other people. I'll put a plug in for Bob Pappas and Doug Turner, who's our current treasurer. Bob was our former vice president. Both of those guys have their own print framing matting shop, and they do work for a lot of the Camera Club of Richmond members. Many of us use Richmond ProLab for printing. So it's not a requirement. I know we talked about, when you create the image, it must be totally your work, but the printing of the image does not need to be your work. You may go to a lab for that printing. I think if Pat's trying to scroll back here, I believe it's somewhere in this procedure that says you don't have to print your own image. So just wanted to clarify that, because I'd be up a creek. I can't print my own images. I don't have a good enough printer.
We need to award bonus points to those of us that actually print our own images.
I know. I thought about that, It really
So
should be.
it's really, I guess the question is right, if you're evaluating prints, right, what is it being evaluated on, right? And
Right.
if there is an edge from, a service versus somebody's, printer at home, then, that's, it's just not apples to apples, I guess.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
I did want to ask though, that I've heard a couple of people say, you could submit prints. It's a smaller group you're competing in, but the reality is that these judges are using PPA criteria and they are ranking your image, right? And if you don't achieve a certain score, you don't get an award, even if you are the only person. Like if you submit a print of a building and you were the only person to submit an architecture print, you still will not get an honorable mention or a first place or a best in show if you don't achieve the score that you need, the minimum required to get that award, right?
Correct. This was the
So
thing Pat said she wasn't going to get into all the end of year stuff, but we changed it about 4 years ago from some kind of a everybody gets a trophy sort of thing to we really want to step up the quality of the photography that we are producing as a club and help our members to step up their own internal quality. And what we introduced was something called a minimum total score. And so when they go through the judging at end of year, we have 3 judges. They'll judge, they can award the minimum of 3 points, maximum of 9 points. So again, the lowest score that a photo could receive would be a 9. The highest score would be a 27. And so what we did was we took the different groups and said, okay, for a novice, what do we think should be a minimum score for them to achieve, a quality picture, and then a little bit higher score for advanced and an even higher score for expert. So that first year, it was sort of a stab in the dark as to what we thought it should be. And as it's turned out, the same standards that we've used each year have held true every single competition. So, there's a discussion amongst the board at the moment, literally at the moment. We had emails today of, all right, people are asking for their individual scores from last year's competition, and we are giving those out. So, I can send a note to Terry, our webmaster, and say, Terry, I want my scores. And you can get, what score each of your photos received. You don't see anybody else's scores, but if you got an honorable mention that you must have done pretty well, or if you got a first place, you did really well. So that's how those scores sort of align. And Michael's right in saying that you could have the only architecture picture in black and white for advanced, but if it doesn't hit the minimum that we've defined, it might not get an award because it's not viewed as being a quality image. So we can get into more of that when we get into this, like probably in July, August, September sometime. We'll start to thinking about end of year.
sorry for turning down that road.
It's okay. Now we got a little taste of what's to come, But the whole intent is to educate, to help people get better that want to get better, to encourage people to participate. I said earlier, it really is painless. It's a little scary, and I admit I was petrified the first time I sent some images in for evaluation. Like, oh no, what is Anthony Rumley going to say about my portraits? So it's a little bit scary, but you tend to develop a thicker skin, and boy, you really do learn not only from what they say about your photos, but from everybody else's photos that you see in these evaluations. And then you start playing a
I've had,
game with yourself.
I think it was David Everett one time, several years ago. I mean, the images that were submitted were just beautiful. And he kept saying, I don't have anything to say about it. It's great. I don't have anything to say about it. It's great. And I submitted an image that I knew had some issues. I liked it, but I knew it had some issues. And he pointed out these problems. It was like 3 or 4 problems I had. And afterwards he said, I want to see more like that. And it wasn't that he wanted to see it because it was a great photo. He wanted to see more where he could actually provide some input and help somebody better their image.
Exactly.
They don't have, yeah, they don't think they have to be perfect images.
That's true. So anybody else have a story to tell on those of you who have participated in an evaluation?
I mean, I would just say that if I'm struggling with images, I'll put them in the evaluation to get an opinion. I don't look at the evaluation like they need to be perfect. I look at the evaluation like it's a rare opportunity to have somebody that doesn't know it's my image, tell me what they think. And, I hope to learn from it. I've
Mhm.
done that. I've done that several times. I mean, sometimes I see an image, I put an image in in my humble opinion, I'm like, wow, I did great here. I love this photo. It's my favorite photo. Let's see what somebody else says, and you just kind of cross your fingers and hope you get the same reaction. But uh, it, I look at it like it's an opportunity, to learn. And,
Absolutely.
and
I'll put in a plug too for we have a Facebook group. We also have a Facebook page, which is our public facing page for Camera Club of Richmond. But the group that we have is for members only. And I would encourage you, if you have an image that you want to post to that group, anybody can go in and put a message out on the group. You can attach a file and say, hey, I've got this image. Would, people give me some feedback on it? So feel free to use that group for that kind of information, or to ask for help. Or I saw just recently someone had a metal print. Someone's asking about canvas prints and metal prints, and then they are fine to enter evaluations. But someone was asking about, if we're going to put these in an exhibit and we have to put a wire hanger on the back, how do you put a wire hanger on a metal print? And we had several of our members jump in with suggestions of, well, you can try this. You can put a wooden block on there and put a screw eye in, or you can use those command strips, or, so it's a great place to exchange information, feedback. Hey, I've got something to sell. Does anybody know about a good Lightroom class? Et cetera, et cetera. So it's a great place to exchange information. So yeah, go look for that Camera Club of Richmond Facebook group and have at it.